I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Susan Kahan. Allow multiple presenters. Sure. Yeah, I was gonna share. Let's see. Oh, sorry, Christina. Oh, there it goes. I was like, why can't I share my screen? Um, all right, so we have Smart Stewardship, Scale Donor Love Without Scaling Your Budget with Susan Kahan, the fundraising advisor and trainer at Sapphire Fundraising Specialists. So I'll do a quick intro, but of course, Susan, feel free to do your own welcome as well. So she is a nonprofit and fundraising expert with more than 15 years of experience. She's actually raised over $75 million and personally held more than 500 donor meetings. And before launching her firm in 2021, she held leadership roles at the Chicago Council on Global Affairs and AIPAC. So I want to give you a warm welcome, Susan. Thank you so much for being with us.
Great. Hi, Jenna. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm really thrilled. Let me get my screen shared so we can get started. Hopefully this.
Okay, great. And I just want to say, I know we're 5 minutes over, and our next session, everyone, is going to be a break. So, Susan, if you need to take an extra few minutes to wrap up, no worries.
Perfect. Okay, let me just get my screen all set up. There's so many screens and there's so many things happening. But welcome everyone. Again, my name is Susan Kahn. I am so excited to be here. We have 45 minutes together today. Thank you again to causevox. And I really want to make this as interactive and engaging for you as possible. So please say hello in the chat if you can, and I will try to check in and say hi. But let's just see. Hopefully, you're seeing my screen. Just a little bit about me. Again, I've been in the field for 15 years. I love nonprofits. I love fundraising. I'm based in Chicago. So if anyone else is in Chicago, say hello. We actually have some sun, hopefully, today. And I am excited to be here today. So, what are we going to be talking about? We're talking about smart stewardship. So, as we all know, we're going to talk about why should we care about smart stewardship? Why should we be caring about stewarding our donors? We're going to be talking about how to segment your donors and some different ideas and different ways to do that. I have some really interesting thoughts. I know I've worked with nonprofits for a long time, and I hear all the time about how they sometimes have no budget, well, to add on to their stewardship plans. Well, that is not a problem. We're going to talk about ideas that basically cost you nothing, but ways to steward your donors. Then some tools and tracking. Hint, CRMs like causevox, really important for tracking what you're doing. And then finally, we'll go into some Q&A and I'll share my contact information. But before we get started, I just want to get a little bit of a sense. Oops, too quick. I want to make sure. Okay, yeah, we're on the right one. So add to the chat, and I hopefully you can see what other people are saying because I think it's really helpful. But add to the chat A, B, C, or D. What statement best matches your nonprofit? Are you this year? Do you feel like you're having a growing number of donors here in 2025? Or B, do you feel like you have about the same number of donors giving to your organization as in 2024? C, do you have a declining number of donors than you had in 2025? Or D, you're not sure. Or also, it could be it's too early. So I'm just going to take a look at the chat. Lots of hellos. Oh, hello, hello, hello. Okay, just south of Chicago. I'm just going back. Okay, so we have A, C, D, D, A, B, D, B, A, C. B, 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 C. Okay, so we really have a range. So this is really interesting. Okay, I'm gonna have to go back and look at this later to see the diversity, but a lot of A's and B's. So those of you who have a growing number of donors, fantastic. That's amazing. We're gonna talk a little bit about why am I asking this question next. So now back into the chat. We now have one, two, three, four, or five. So we can see the difference in the poll in the answers. What is your biggest barrier to stewarding your donors? Is it one, that you don't have enough time? Is it two, you have a limited budget? Is it three, you're maybe not sure where to start? Is it four, not your responsibility? So you're here just to learn about fundraising, but you other people have to do stewardship, or 5, it's some other reason of why you're not stewarding your donors more. And I, just for reference, I posted this poll on LinkedIn, and overwhelmingly the responses were number 1, not enough time. So I'm curious to see what you all say. Let's take a look. If I scroll back, ooh, we've got a lot of numbers. Okay, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 1, 5, 1, 5, just starting. Well, we've got some ideas for you, Marianne, who just posted that. 3, 4, and 5. 3, 4, 1, 2. Okay, so quite a range. Well, we're going to talk about all of these different information. Margot posted, contact information is not up to date. That's a very good one. And there we have some ideas in here, but maybe let's come back to that if you put in the Q&A, and then we can come back and talk about that later on. So thank you so much for filling that out. Again, please feel free to keep asking your questions. I'm going to pause as we go. But let's just start the basics. I'm all about the why. We should always, whenever we're doing strategy and fundraising, we always want to be thinking about why are we doing things, because we can't waste our time. So many of you just said we're too busy, we don't have enough to do. So first we want to think about, if we're going to do donor stewardship, why do we care? Why should we do it? So let's think about 4 reasons. Number 1, increase donor retention. For those of you who've had maintaining your donors or increasing the number of donors that you're having this year, amazing. I'm going to guess you want to keep them for next year and for next year and for next year. It is so much more cost effective to retain the donors you have than to go out and acquire new donors. Just like think about, friends that you have. It is so much easier to maintain current friends than to acquire new friends. It's the same thing at your nonprofit. So you want to make sure that you are being really thoughtful and strategic with your time and with your budget. The other thing is that as donors stay with you, if you steward them and you get to know them and figure out what they like, it's so much easier to get them to increase their giving over time. So one year they give $100, the next year they give $500, the next year they give $1,000, the next year they give $5,000. You can get them to increase giving. Obviously not everyone, but it only is possible if you get to know them and they get to know you. The final thing I just want to emphasize here, and add to the chat if there's another reason why you feel like donor stewardship is so important, but you want your donors to feel happy, right? Happy donors are good donors. And when donors are happy, they're much more likely to talk about how amazing your nonprofit is versus if they never, if they're not happy. I think we've all seen experiences, and we've all had experiences ourselves where you have bad customer service or you didn't have a good experience in a restaurant or a store. You're really unlikely to go back. It's the same thing with donating to a nonprofit. Because remember, donating is voluntary. You do not have to give, or they do not have to give again. So you want to make sure that they're feeling good and that they can tell their friends all about how great your nonprofit is. So next, let's talk. Oh, wait, I just saw something in the chat that I just wanted to. Barbara said everything to donors has to go through the ED, which is both a bottleneck and ends up shifting the message. Wow. I mean, Joanne, which, hi, by the way, this gives some great advice. And I think this is one of those things that you might want to talk to your executive director and just emphasize how much time you're spending on that bottleneck. But thanks for sharing. So we've talked about why donor stewardship matters. Let's go into a little bit on the segmentation. So what is segmentation, first of all? That is just splitting up your donors into groups. We all are busy. We all have lots to do. So let's think about ways you can be personal and show your donors that you know them. I have a great friend, Jordana Merkin, who works at Voice for Good, the founder, and she talks about show me you know me. And segmenting is a great way to emphasize that you know them. So let's go into a few ideas. So as you can see, I have 9 ideas of different ways we can segment your donors. So what are a few? These are 2 probably the most common, and hopefully based on your CRM and your data, easy for you to look at. The first is giving level. Giving level is just how much does a donor give each year. So you might have a major giving level, you might have different benefits at different levels of giving. This is pretty common of how to segment your donors and to steward them in different ways. The next is the number of years of giving. So, especially for first time donors or long term donors, so donors who have been giving 10, 15, 20, 50 years, those are great segments to highlight. And I'm going to talk about some different ways that we can steward these donors. But your first time donors are really important to steward in special ways because, again, they don't have to give again and they're kind of testing you on how it's going. And those long-term donors are great plan giving prospects. So we're not talking too much about plan giving today, but as you're thinking about who could potentially leave a legacy gift, your longer term donors are the best indicator of who is your best legacy giving prospect. What else? How the donor gives. So this might be through a donor advised fund, from a stock gift. They always call you because and how they give. Think about how you can steward people in different ways and acknowledge, we know you gave by a donor advised fund last year. Here's some information. We see that, the new tax laws are changing different things. You can emphasize again that you know them and you appreciate their giving based on how they're giving. What about why they give or their connection? For those of you who are at schools or summer camps, or if you're at a hospital or healthcare system where someone was a former patient, they're going to have a different connection to your work than just someone in the community. So knowing that, again, someone's an alumni, someone's a parent of an alumni, someone did a summer program with you, someone received treatment at your facility, they're going to be connected to you in different ways. And if you're able to track that and let them know you remember this, they're going to feel a stronger bond to you. Next, age or generation. I'm really into generations right now. It's kind of my favorite thing to talk about. But right now, we have 5 different generations that you might be soliciting from. So we have our silent generation, we have the baby boomer, we have Gen X, we have millennial, and then we have Gen Z. And then there's also like the younger than that, but those probably aren't your donors at this point. But these 5 different generations have experienced the world in very different ways. They use technology in different ways. Not everyone is going to fall easily into some of these stereotypes, but it's helpful for you to know what generation they are because chances are a baby boomer is going to not be on TikTok and a Gen Z donor is not going to know certain cultural references that you're talking about from the 1980s. So just being aware of who these people are and is important as you get to know them and as you steward them. Next, how do they get to you? This is really important because you want to be able to know if is it Facebook, is it the website, where was it an event? So then you can reference it again later. Again, show me you know me, as Jordana says. These are really critical ways for you to show that you have a connection to them and you remember who they are. Because donors want to make sure you know who they are, no matter the amount that they're giving. Region or country, again, a very common way to segment out your donors. If you're a national organization, you might have different staff that focus specifically in different regions. But also just know, for instance, sporting events. I am from Chicago. I live in Chicago now, but I used to fundraise in Boston. And let me tell you, the Patriots were really, really important. Like really important. And if I didn't know when the game was, or I didn't know if they won or not the previous day, that would have made me look like I wasn't really connected with my donors. So you need to know some of these references. Maybe there's certain holidays that are a little bit different or a bigger deal in different cities. Just knowing these regions and then being able to get to know them based on that. Same thing with country, by the way, region, but also country. Then finally, this is something especially for your major donors and your larger donors who you're really trying to steward and get to know them at even higher levels. Is what business sector are they? Sometimes you'll see lawyers groups or accountant groups, entrepreneur groups. This is a great way for you to build connection within your community and for people to get to know each other so that, again, they're just even more connected to your nonprofit because they're not just seeing this as something, a mission that they care about, but they're also getting value beyond that. They might also have a personal interest. You hear about book clubs, you'll hear about different things like that you want to be aware of. So just finding different ways to segment people and get groups together is a really helpful way to personalize your stewardship. Okay, I'm just checking to make sure I'm not missing anything in the chat. Looks like we're okay, but please feel free to keep adding on to the chat. And what I'd love to hear is what other ways are you stewarding your donors in terms of segments? Do you segment in specific ways? Are you looking at different groups? I'd love to hear. Again, I don't know everything, so I'd love to hear what other people are doing or if one of these is really resonating with you that you hadn't necessarily thought of. Um, Let's see here. We've been operating, I've gone through 3 name changes. An email I just sent wasn't very active, so I sent her the story and then told her the story, blah, blah, blah. I've started doing this that's awesome. Megan shares families versus individuals versus youth. Absolutely. Again, where someone is in their life stage is a great way to segment people. Again, especially if it's based on what your mission or the work that you're doing. You want to segment something that makes sense for your organization. That's really important. Thanks for sharing, Megan. If anyone else has any ideas, please feel free to add to the chat. Okay, so now let's talk some tactics. We've talked about segmenting and how to personalize, but what can you actually do to steward your donors and make them feel really special? And let's say perhaps you either don't have a big budget or you don't want to add something that's too costly or too time consuming, because the thing is, you're not going to do it if it's too complicated. So let's put in some easy ideas. Um, so the first, okay, call your donors. Can I just shout from the rooftops? You should be calling your donors more than you are. Even if you leave a voicemail, even if they never call you back, even if they never acknowledge it, you calling, they will appreciate it. You're taking the time just to say hello, just to say thank you. One of the things I can't emphasize enough is donors who've been giving for multiple years. When someone's been giving for 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, this is a great way to learn why they gave and let them know how much you appreciate it. Second, publicly thank your donors for their support. This could be in an email, acknowledge someone who's been giving for a certain number of years, acknowledge someone who just made a really large gift. If it's at an event, even, that's a great way. Have all your legacy donors stand up. Have all of your donors who give on a monthly basis stand up. Thank you so much for continuously supporting our work. On social media, even tag people, make it public, people's giving. That you might want to first get their approval that you're tagging them publicly, but you can find different ways of thanking people in different ways. Number 3, have your board members help you on stewardship calls. Your board members hopefully are involved in fundraising, and oftentimes, and I hear this a lot, that board members don't want to ask for gifts or they don't know who to go to. But you could probably give them a list of donors at any level and give them a list and say, can you call them? Here's a script. Here's something to say. You're just letting them know that you appreciate it. You're a board member, and ask them to tell their story a little bit. Same thing with executive director. What else could you do? You could send pictures, drawings, or recordings to your donors. Let's say you are a school and your kids at your school draw, have art projects all the time. Can you take pictures of these art projects and send it on a postcard, a text message, and say, look at the great work we're doing? Maybe you are a, musical nonprofit, a symphony, a recording a studio, a theater, something, music school. Can you record stuff and send something to people? Do things that evoke emotion and show different levels of how people can stay in touch with you. Again, these shouldn't be very costly. Ask your donors to share why they give. Getting testimonials, getting feedback. This is really, really helpful, and get people to remember why they give, because you may not know the reason and you may learn a lot, and get people to remember and feel great about why they give. Ask your donors for advice and really listen to their feedback. I really, especially, if we're talking about business sector or personal interest or years of giving, if you're newer to your organization, you see someone's been giving for 25 years, ask for their feedback. What have they seen? What has worked? You saw that you used to do some event and that you're not doing it anymore. Ask them, hey, can you tell me what this was and what happened? I don't have great information on it. So there's a lot of different things you can ask for. Really listen to their feedback. And again, you'll really gain a greater relationship with your donors, and they'll feel great about your organization. 3 more ideas that I want to share. Share an article. So you're hopefully reading things about different sectors. Again, find connections in with your donors. So whether it's region, business sector, personal interest. Say, I know when we last spoke, you said you're really into knitting. I just saw this article in the New York Times and it's talking all about knitting and I thought of you. It's just a simple email. It doesn't have to be, with a question. It's just saw this, thought of you based on our last conversation. Connect two donors or contacts to each other. Again, let's say you have a lot of baby boomers who are retiring and were really senior in their field, and then you have a next gen component to your donor base, a Gen Z or millennial donors, and one is looking for a job in a specific sector, and one of your donors used to be in that sector, connect them to each other. People love meeting other people with a common interest, and they will appreciate what you're doing for them. Finally, invite your donors for a behind the scenes look or volunteer opportunities. You may think this is just standard and this is just what you do, but if you have an interesting facility, people love to see behind the scenes. They like a special treat. So there's so many different ways for you to steward your donors that really shouldn't cost you that much. All right, let's take a look at the chat. How often should we call? I mean, that's really going to vary. I think, again, this is where segmenting comes in. Oftentimes, you'll look at your largest donors and you'll want to steward them and check in with them more. Sometimes it's your smaller donors. It's really going to vary. But I would say make a plan and then work that plan. So if you have a goal for your major donors I often suggest 4 touch points a year. So that might be a phone call, that might be an email, that might be a meeting, that might be something else. But call every few months. Some donors really need a lot of touches, some don't. So it's really going to vary. Thoughts on handwritten thank yous? Karina, sorry. I love handwritten thank yous. I can't emphasize enough handwritten thank yous. And thank you, I should have added that in and I didn't. People, I think when we get something in the mail and you see someone hand wrote your name, the name and the address, they will more likely open it versus how often when you get mail and you see something that's just printed and it's from a nonprofit that maybe you support, maybe you don't, and you're not going to open it. So remember, donors are people. I know it's a really crazy thought, but donors are people. So think, what are normal people behaviors? They're going to open something or they're going to look at something if it's handwritten. Same thing with postcards. I think postcards are a great tool because chances are someone's going to look at it. So I think handwritten thank you is another great way to get your volunteers involved. To help you with that is to get more people writing. Barbara's saying, are there specific options that work well for corporate and foundation donors? We do invite donors to visit our workshops, but it's not always an option and it takes a lot of coordination. Definitely. When you're inviting people to things, you've got to think it through and you want to make sure that they're having a great experience. I would say for corporate and foundation donors, it's going to vary. Remember, both corporate and foundation donors, the decision making is different than for an individual or a major donor. So you want to make sure that you are connecting with something that is the organizational priority. So when you're thinking about stewarding them, it's really thinking, what are they looking for? What are their goals? And I would often start, especially with a newer or even a long-term partner from the corporate or foundation sector, is I would talk to them and say, we really want to make sure we have a great relationship. Can we set aside some time and just talk through what are your goals? How could we serve you? How could we be a great partner and collaborator? And I would just ask them because different companies, different sizes, different sectors are going to want different things. Foundations, you might already be doing grant reporting and they might be doing a lot. Again, it doesn't hurt to check in with people. People are people, regardless of what sector they are. So if you can check in and talk to them and just say, hey, I thought of this and I saw you, I think that is always going to be relevant. But again, their needs are definitely different. Great question. Okay, let's keep going because I want to make sure we have plenty of time through the end, but these are really awesome questions. Tools and tracking. I said, call your donors, number 1. Number 2, donors are people. Number 3, track what you do. You will forget. It's 11:12 a.m. Central Time where I am. I've done 4 different things this morning before I got hopped on this call. I couldn't tell you all of them. I don't remember. Chances are you don't remember everything you did. Look at all the emails that you've read today. Do you remember all of them? Who sent them? What was the topic? People have bad memories. So when you do things, record it in your CRM, like causevox, or track it in some way. It's really important. So let's talk about some of those tools. So like I said, CRM, really, really important to track your information, whether that's contact information, whether that's how you're reaching out to people, whether that's what events someone's going to, their giving history, if you can track biographies, social media handles. These are great things to track. And for the person, I can't remember who said it before about not having great contact information. I totally, totally get it. I would just emphasize, like, start reaching out. Postcards are a great way to do this. Like, send it to the address you have, reach out to people on social media. Like, you might take longer, but start now. Start now with collecting information. Your emails, again, you have your mass emails, templates, automated, all of that stuff, make sure you're tracking. Website can also be great. These are all great stewardship tools, by the way, is the point of this. So the emails, use that. The website, there's different systems that can actually personalize when someone is welcomed into the website. Can you also make sure you say, for different groups of people, highlight that who they are? Use the tools you have. Social media, we talked about. If there's other tools, please let me know. Add it to the chat. I'm going a little quick because I just want to make sure we have enough time. Tracking. Who did you reach out to? So this is what I'm really trying to talk about. How did you reach out to them? Was it by email? Someone said, how often should we call? Look at, if you call them today, August 21st, and then it's November and you look back at their account and you're like, oh, I haven't called them since August. Now is a great time to call. It's the end of the year. But if you didn't put that in, you won't remember when you last called them. So make sure you help your future self. Track the feedback. If you're doing a whole email campaign or you do an event or you're doing, you have your board members all calling people or sending out handwritten notes. What was the feedback? Did you get anything? Did people like it? Was it appreciated? Did it increase giving? Track that information. In addition, everything should have a goal. Why are you doing this? What are you trying to achieve? I hear a lot about events. I work with clients all the time and they're all like, oh, we're doing this event. And I'm like, okay, cool. What is the event for? And they're like, well, we want to raise money. Amazing. And I'm like, so who are you reaching out to? How are you going to raise the money? And they're like, well, we're getting some new people and some younger people and they've never been involved with us before. And I'm like, then this is not a fundraising event. This is a friend raising event. You're trying to get people to know you and like you. Also important, but you're not going to raise a lot of money that way. So really be thoughtful with every activity you're doing. What is the goal? There's other things about how to track. Again, please add it to the chat. I, don't know everything. Next, let's talk modern ways of using technology. And so I want to talk about some GPTs, some AI, how to help you with your stewardship. There are a lot of different systems out there. I'm not going to recommend one over the other, but what I will say, no matter what AI platform GPT you're using, remember that whatever output you're getting from them, that's the first draft. So think about your staff. And let's say someone on your team does a first draft of an email to send out to your donors. And you're like, well, this is it, but it's not quite it. And so you give some feedback and then they come back to you. And then it's like, oh, this is so much better. This is exactly what I was looking for. Versus having you rewrite everything because you didn't like the first draft. So remember, with the GPTs, make sure you're giving more information, more feedback so that you can get better products. Okay, so what are some things you could do? First, a personalized template. I talked about, 9 different groups that you can segment. And chances are it's not realistic for you to actually have 9 different segments, plus in each segment, you have 5 different groups. So you want to be thoughtful about which ones make sense for different purposes and for right now. But can you add that to ChatGPT? You don't have to add the data, but if you want to send out an email or you want to update the website or you want to send out, a handwritten note and have some different ideas of what you can say, use ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude to give you some personalized templates for each scenario. Summarize donor data. Again, with a precaution. Be careful about what data you're adding to these systems, but you can anonymize it. You can remove names to get some better analysis of what worked. If you send out emails, you do events, what was the feedback? What was the response rate? What was the conversion rate? All of that things, these systems are great at analyzing that data. Next, impact reports. I think a lot of organizations do annual reports, impact reports, monthly reports. Maybe you're going to a foundation partner, and you have a whole grant report and you want to share something like that for a major donor. How can you get a snippet that's really of interest to different donors? And if you have some different segments and you want to highlight different areas, what are some snippets you can take from your reports and send out to your donors? What else could you use AI for? Create personalized calendars. Make a plan. And for this, I'm actually going to say I have a brand new calendar that I'm going to give you access to in just a moment. I just was finishing it up, but have ChatGPT or have Claude or have Gemini help you to create a plan so that you can make this easy and actionable. Conversation starters. So many of us get concerned of what should we be saying to our donors. I have these systems help you with ideas. They are great idea generators. And then finally, personalized scripts for board members. So let's say you are doing a phone-a-thon. Let's say you're doing a thank-a-thon. Let's say you want your board members to reach out in advance of an event to thank people and to invite people to something that you're hosting, and give some context to the system about who your board member is and why they're reaching out, and then make it custom just for them. How else are you guys using AI? I'd love to have that in the chat. I know I went through that really, really fast, but I wanted to leave 10 minutes or so for questions. So I'm just going to take a look in a second. Before we get there, when it comes to donor stewardship, I want you to remember, again, donors are people. So what do people want? Don't think about what you could have done or should have done. I talk again with nonprofits. They're like, oh, well, we haven't stewarded our donors enough, and therefore we don't have great relationships with them because all these things happened in the past 10 years and we've really, really struggled. Well, the thing is, you can start today. You could start right now. So I want you all to think for a moment. I talked about a lot of different ideas. We went really fast. You have 2 days of sessions of information. What's one thing you can do right now to start stewarding your donors? One thing. And start doing that now. Don't worry about what could have happened. And then again, test it to see how it goes and track what you've done. I really can't emphasize this part enough, is that the testing and the tracking. Use your CRM like causevox to really help you and help your future self. So with that, I do want to share some information. So I have a brand new, I just finished it, donor stewardship calendar that's helpful for 6 different donor segments. So scan the QR code on the right. I also, like I said, I'm really into generations, and I know Gen Z fundraisers are sometimes struggling picking up the phone, and even fundraisers of all kind, with talking to donors across generations and building relationships. So I have a course online, so feel free to scan the QR code on the left. There's all of my information. Please feel free to contact me on LinkedIn. But I'd love to get your questions and thoughts and concerns, feedback. Okay, so let's see what we have. So I'm going back. Barbara said, are there specific options that work? Oh, we talked about that. We invite donors. I used to help generate briefing notes for donor workshop visits so the staff member had background on the donor organization, people who were involved in the visit. That included conversation starters. Great idea. Again, conversation starters. Everyone's like, how do I start the conversation? Once you get started, usually most people are able to make it work. But think about different generation ideas to start the conversations, and GPTs can be great because you give them the context and then they'll come up with ideas, and it might get you to have other ideas. Again, these are first drafts. The other thing, again, when you're adding information to these systems, just know that that is then their data that they might be using for future. So if there's things that you want to make sure you keep private, make sure you are reviewing it before you add anything. All right, David, thanking each donor with a set of emails. Absolutely. Series of emails are super, super helpful to make sure that you stay in touch with them. Again, one email is not enough. One email is not going to, how often do you just delete an email? You see an email and it just doesn't, um, it doesn't get answered. What else? Please feel free to add your questions or thoughts or feedback. I'd love to hear it. Jenna, I don't know if you're seeing any questions, but I will just keep sharing some thoughts. I hear a lot from donors or from my clients as well that they feel like they don't have time and they're not sure when to do this. And so the one thing I would really emphasize in terms of timing is that you want to make sure that you set aside time for this. If you prioritize it, you will do it. So can you make it, the first thing you do every day is you write, 5 handwritten cards. The first thing you do, maybe that's every Monday, that's the way you start your week. Every Tuesday, you are going to, look for some articles that you can send out, and you send out 3 articles to 10 different people. And that's what you do to start your day. So really think about how can you make sure that you are prioritizing this donor stewardship so that it's part of your everyday and it's not like, oh, when are we going to do this? When are we going to do this? So really emphasize that. Joanne, thank you so much. I really appreciate the feedback. That's really kind. Peggy says, thanks so much. I needed the motivation ideas. Okay, awesome. Yes, sometimes you just need a little motivation to get started. So I want to ask everyone else, what's one thing they plan to do for donor stewardship? Let's say it's before Labor Day, before the beginning of September. What are people going to be doing? Let's see. Bethany wrote, resegmentation. We often have donors connected to a specific staff member. This happens all the time. People build relationships with people. Is it a good idea to send them emails specifically from that staff person to help them feel they're maintaining that personal connection? You know, there, Bethany, there's a lot that it's hard to know exactly the scenario. I think when someone builds a relationship with one staff person, you'll sometimes see organizations like, well, once they get to a certain level, then they move on to another staff person, especially at larger organizations. And that gets really hard because people are like, yeah, but I know Bethany, and Bethany is my person, and I want to go to Bethany. I think to maintain that relationship is good. And also, as we all know, staff attrition is a big challenge. And so while you want the donors to get to know and build great, strong, amazing relationships with your staff, you also want to make sure that they're building great, strong, amazing relationships with your organization, first and foremost. So I think it's good to have that specific staff relationship, but also make sure that they're getting to know other people because chances are, spoiler alert, your staff will leave. And so you want to make sure that you don't lose those donor relationships when the staff leave. Karen wrote, handwritten thank you for recurring donors. Love that, Karen. Great idea. Shay, look back at past donors. Yes, your lapsed donors are people come to me all the time and they ask, where's my next major donor? And I'm like, have you looked at your donor base? Like who used to give or who has given at a similar level or a little bit lower level? Go back to your past donors, reach out to them. It's a great way for you to increase your donor base. Peggy shares, call my largest donor today and thank them. Yes, Peggy, new CEO I haven't connected as well with. I had a close relationship with the past one. I've made assumptions that may not be correct. It's so true. Like, don't assume things about your donors when you don't know these facts. You can make observations, you can make guesses, but until you know things for sure, don't assume it. And I think just checking in with people, can you everyone on this call, I see 115 participants, can you make one phone call to one donor today? Just one. And just to say thank you, just to let them know what's going on, just to say, hey, how has your summer been? just to say, hey, I want to make sure you know that we have this upcoming event and I wanted to make sure it's on your calendar because it would be so amazing if you were there. Can you call one person to do one of those things? Peggy also said, we're in the middle of our largest fundraiser. I'm going to have all board members sign a thank you card that I can handwrite on. Exactly. I love that. Another great idea. Again, your board members do want to be helpful. Some are going to be more proactive when it comes to fundraising, but oftentimes you need to guide them and tell them what to do. They don't know. They are not professional fundraisers. They are not nonprofit experts. You are. So you need to go out and guide them and tell them what what's possible and what they should be doing. Any other questions or any other feedback? Thanks all so much for being so active in the chat. I really appreciate it.
This has been fantastic. Thank you so much, Susan. Looks like we are able to walk away with some number one steps to personalize our donor appreciation and donor stewardship. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let me add your contact links in the chat. All right, so if anybody has any other questions as they go through their week or next week, feel free to reach out to Susan via LinkedIn, sign up for her email, and also the website URL is in the chat as well. Really appreciate your time today with us, Susan. I hope you have a good weekend.
Great. Thank you.